Friends, 40 days of war in Ukraine and long time indeed. Ukrainian army is resisting and the Russian army is, of course, after having passed its phase 1, enters in second phase almost a week now. After 30 days itself, the phase 1 was over. And after phase 1, it started reducing its military presence around Kyiv. In fact, withdrawing from there, which Ukraine claims that because of their resistance, the Russian army is retreating. And they have captured various other sub-towns, small establishments around Kyiv, like Bucha, on which we'll come again. On economic front, let us go one by one. Polish Prime Minister has said, yes, the Prime Minister himself, that Western sanctions against Russia do not work, and it is evidenced by the exchange rate of ruble which is rising. Ukrainian Ministry of Finance has said that in last 30 days it has spent close to $10 billion on war. And war is still continuing. It's a heavy amount. Slovakia has said that if needed to buy Russian gas in ruble, it will buy in ruble. And the German finance minister, very important statement he has given, that the conflict in Ukraine or crisis in Ukraine will lead to decrease in well-being of German citizens. That means he is preparing his people that be ready, your purchasing power is going to reduce, pauperization will rise. But it does not mean that the Germans oligarchs, the capitalist class, will also be pauperized. No. Their income will increase. It is not finance minister said. This second part I am saying. Well, on political front, a very important thing that happened 2 days back, that two French intelligence DGSC operatives, dead bodies were found in Mariupol. When the helicopters were escaping from there, taking refugees, the top Ukrainian military brass, they were also found. Now the French people must ask why these two French intelligence chaps were in Mariupol. What were they doing? They must be there before the war. That means NATO directly or indirectly is part of this war. Well, this is really surprising. While the Chief of General Staff, German Army, said that Iskander Missiles, it's a new, as far as West is concerned, they might be knowing, but its effect is seen newly, unpredictable, not because of its speed. It is hypersonic, but only close to 5 to 6 Mach. Unlike the other one, which is more than 10 Mach. But it's very accurate, very lethal, and the war load it carries is phenomenal. And destruction naturally has to be much more, and there is no defensive against it. A sure shot, maybe 1 or 2 out of 10 are caught. And what he has to say, he said that it can hit entire Western Europe, which is positioned in Kalinigrad, and they no effective defense against it. Very well said, and that is the fact. And that also means that Western Europe has no choice but to buy Russian fuel in rubles. In same Germany, in Berlin, there were a huge rally consisting of more than 5,000 cars in support of Russia, and they were having flags even of ex-USSR. And of course, in the meantime, Germany is selling its latest arms and ammunitions, except like warplanes and ships, which it cannot, to Ukrainian army. And Serbia has declared that it is neutral and will remain neutral. Hungary Prime Minister Orban has won again in the election and said that Hungary has to fight against the local as well as international left. That means communists is fighting against them. Against the bureaucratic Brussels. Brussels, you must be knowing, is the headquarters of NATO. Institutions of Sorors empire. You must know. I will not talk on this, but you must Google and find out if you haven't heard of this. Soros, the oligarch of USA. And there are many more such oligarchs who sit together and decide which part of the country to be invaded or neoliberal policy to be forced upon to increase their profit rate, which has a tendency to go to the zero or even in minus occasionally. So that is Soros. International media, he is criticizing international media also, the Hungary Prime Minister. And now says Zelenskyy, who has said that Orban is becoming pro-Russia. And he says that in the horde of enemies, number of enemies, Hungary is to face and fight out. Zelenskyy is the latest one. Now, on military front, except that the Russian military has withdrawn, more than 25,000 Russians have left the areas, establishments surrounding Kyiv. By and large, the other territorial position is same vis-a-vis Ukrainian army. Russia said it has withdrawn, wherein Ukraine says it has forced Russian military to go back and it has liberated. It is propaganda, it is continuing, while in the meantime, Russian missile, rocket, aerial attack by its helicopters as well as fighter planes continuing, and it has increased. In fact, the aim is Donbass, northeast and southeast Ukraine, as well as the coastal area, that is Sea of Azov and Black Sea. Sea of Azov is over, almost over, because Mariupol has fallen. The governor of Sumy has said that a huge number of Russian military has entered Sumy, part of northeast. It is continuing as we know. And also has said that a corridor has been formed, or probably it has come from different sources, for the Russian military equipment from Kyiv to Chernihiv and towards Russia, that is eastern Russia. Concentration in Donbass area is increasing. In Mariupol, the west of Mariupol, adjacent of it, the Azovstal enterprises that attack and bits and pieces here and there, whatever the resistance by leftover Ukrainian and Azov battalion is continuing. Now I'm coming, little bit of military part again I will come on the propaganda part. Ukraine has said that Russian military is preparing to attack Ukrainian territory from Moldova, Transnistria region, which they have denied. They said it is bogus. It is not so. The bombardment continues in Kharkiv heavily, Kharson as well. Marinka, that is the DPR military, it is continuing. Zaporizhia and Odessa. Odessa is a huge, seems to be a target for Russian military after Mariupol. Donbass, yes, we are talking about Donbass because that encompasses Lugansk and Donetsk area. An entire eastern Ukraine hinges on that. where the 70% of the people, at least few years before, were Russian speaking people and more than 30% were Russian natives, and in which Russia is much interested because the people were being badly suppressed, killed last 10 years. In fact, 2014 onwards, more than 12,000 of them have been killed by Ukrainian military and Nazis, which led to this war. Not only this, but one of the reasons. Donbass is very important because it encompasses almost 2/3 of Ukrainian region, plus Odessa, if we include Odessa. So Donbass, Odessa, and little bit of North Ukraine. That entire part consists, minus Ukrainian West and the capital, wherein the Russian army seems to be interested and concentrating. And the shelling is, of course, on fuel depot. That's huge everywhere. Airfields even, because they suspect that they are being used to bring NATO and US arms and ammunitions. And Kyiv is not free. That cannot be free. And that's what has been confirmed by the General Staff of Armed Forces Ukraine, that they are being attacked fully. Okay, friends, to conclude my side, my talk today, little bit on propaganda. I was talking about the reason being left by Russian army. Bucha is the one, north west of Kyiv, where Ukraine claims that 410 dead bodies of civilians have been found. And of course, everyone is shouting what Ukraine says, almost in the sync. I have already talked to you on this. They have synchronized media on this, the entire MSM of West, including UK, USA. They start singing in the same tone. That includes even in the Indian media and others, that there has been massacre, more than 400 people have been killed in Bucha. And Chechenian fighters were there. And of course, whomever the blame goes, it goes on Russia. There is another part of this story, that the initial video that was shared by Ukrainian, one of the dead body by mistake raises that white cloth over him and covers himself, the hand goes. And another one, when the show is almost over, in the mirror it comes, that a dead body thinks that the show is over, gets up and starts walking away. Exposes the entire drama. And of course, Russia has said they're nothing like that, because they had withdrawn the entire forces from there, the Bucha, 30th March, and this started after 4 days. Naturally, I mean, it's all smoke without fire. In anti-propaganda, I mean, the part of propaganda, which turns out to be anti-propaganda, NATO Secretary General Stoltenberg, while talking to CNN, said that Russian withdrawal from Kyiv is not real, but preparation for next attack. So the Ukrainian propaganda that they have liberated these regions by forcing the Russian army is exposed. That's why I said it is counter-propaganda in its own ways. An American journalist has said that by raising this hue and cry, that there is a genocide and all that, what is the aim behind Ukraine? That it wants to push NATO and US into the war. Naturally, that Zelenskyy has been trying, and in fact Zelenskyy is speaking what NATO headquarters tells him, what Washington tells him. Well, friends, coming to my end, keep your critical brain open. In fact, sharpen it. Try and find out from day-to-day propaganda. Do not jump to conclusion from day-to-day news, informations, one-sided especially, and especially that of Western media. when they entered in Yugoslavia, bombarded, and other parts of the region, when hundreds of thousands of people, children, women, old people, murdered, women raped, they said it is collateral damage. I am not justifying a single murder. It is injustice. I am not justifying by any chance, even if one of us is murdered, but the life supporting system is taken away from them, from us. Employment taken away, healthcare system taken away. Education system is taken away. A forceful Talibanization is done on us. What is happening in India? In name of education, ignorance and superstition is being thrust upon our children. And any resistance is resisted by the state-sponsored violence and directly by the state. We are against it. We are not united. That is sad part. We are not resisting on a revolutionary path. That is the sad path. Jumping from this party to that party, this system to that system. Supporting capitalism and not supporting crony capitalism as if there is a Chinese wall between the two. Well, so sharpen your critical brain if you have. If you don't have, don't worry. Thank you, friends.